Before we get into the video, shout out to our sponsors Subside clothing brand. Subside is a new, up-and-coming clothing brand established in Bristol that is looking to add something different with their clean designs that celebrate their roots. You can find the link to all their social medias in the description of this video. From the Terrace Podcast and Subside clothing brand, it's a match made in heaven. Support the boys, support the grind, shop Subside. Hello and welcome back to the From the Terrace podcast and another edition of Champ Talk. We are back. They're coming thick and fast, as I seem to be always saying. We have a big group of Saturday midweek games along the way, so you'll be seeing our faces maybe too often. I think some people would say too often, wouldn't they? Yeah, especially look, I feel like a baby now. I've had a shave and maybe looking less like a homeless person though. So, I mean, get in the comments whether you think it's better or not. Anyway, Regan, we're here to talk about Championship football and not my face, because that is a road we don't want to go down. The midweek games, Regan, there was only a few. It was a bit of a smaller fixture list in the midweek. So we've got a few less games to pick from, but one of them is Middlesbrough Rotherham. And Rotherham were winning by 3-0 at a Riverside. It's safe to say we didn't have that in our predictions, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure that's safe to say that's ruined quite a few people's accas, I'd assume as well, because no way. I mean, when we predicted, I said, well, Neil Warnock he's better than Rotherham, but obviously not. But that's a good thing for Rotherham because they're actually starting to get quite a few good results at the moment, and especially coming towards that back end of the season, you need these good results. And I don't know. Maybe they could survive. I don't know if results go their way. Then these results like this, they got no reason. They got no reason to say, well, they shouldn't survive. But that's bad for Borough trying to chase that top six. That's a game you need to win quite comfortably, and that is not good at all. But fair play to Rotherham, and I can't believe I'm saying that really.
Well, Rotherham are putting a couple of decent results together recently, and you're looking at that relegation zone. They are in the final relegation spot in 22nd on 23 points. But they have 2 games in hand, and they're 2 points behind Derby, 2 points behind Nottingham Forest, only 4 behind QPR, and also 3 behind Birmingham. Now, maybe Forest and Derby have picked up results in recent weeks, and you'd think of Chris Hughton in charge and the way Derby are playing under Wayne Rooney. They're not safe, but you'd say they've got a good chance of getting out of it, and you'd think it'd be a struggle for Rotherham to catch them. But Birmingham and QPR are not looking safe, are they? They are not at all. Birmingham have been well dragged into that, as have QPR, but we have mentioned QPR's deficiencies in recent weeks. But Birmingham sort of going under the radar of slipping down the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd say that those 4 teams there, they shouldn't really be there. I mean, especially at the moment, like you said, I expect Derby and Forest to be nowhere near that come the end of the season. I'd probably say that QPR probably climb the table a bit towards the back end because they've got an actual goal scorer who can actually put goals in the back of put balls in the back of the net for once. But yeah, Birmingham go a bit under the radar. Remember, they started off well. They beat you on the first day, and everyone was like, "Oh, hang on." And then they got a few 1-0s, cranker 1-0s, etc. And then they kind of just trailed off into nothing really. I remember when we started doing this season, we talked about them basically every week, and we started predicting them every week. But it's probably since the 5th or 6th week we've only mentioned them maybe even once or twice. And what are we in now, the 26th, 27th week? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, that just shows just how bad they've been. And like I said with Millwall a couple of weeks back, you can't just try and sneak 1-0 wins every single game, where you have to proper play games some weeks, and then obviously that's not what's happening at the moment. And yeah, when you look at the teams around them, Coventry can put results in, Millwall can, and then you go up, and then you're at your 30-point mark. So maybe Birmingham are the team that Rotherham can steal their place, which will be a shame because Birmingham do have a bit of quality in their team, but it's not being utilised in the right way. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I mean, and just before we move on, thoughts on Rotherham in particular, because Rotherham have always been a side who you think they stick at it. They've got limited ability in their squad, and they try and nick games 1-0. But in recent weeks, I'm seeing they've scored 3 away at Borough. I mean, not many teams are doing that at all, if any. They've scored 3 against Stoke previous week, albeit within a 3-3 draw. Then they've done 1-0 at Derby. They've given a good account of themselves against Everton. they've put in a few decent performances of late. They beat Bristol City obviously a few weeks back as well. Rotherham looked like a team we were probably dead and buried, but do you give them a decent chance of staying up now? What are we seeing different from them?
I just think that to start off with, when they got quite a few bad results, I'm pretty sure they got thumped like 4 or 5-0 by Blackburn one of the first weeks of the season. I feel like there's a lot of belief around that club now. Obviously, I'm not sure if something's happened or it's just that first result. And there's a lot. I mean, I can't really put my finger on it, but there's a lot more belief for that club when you look at teams around them, like what Wycombe went through just for like 2-3 weeks midway through the season a couple months ago when they got a few good results. That's what Rotherham are going through now, except for Rotherham are a better team than Wycombe, obviously, because there's an 8-point difference between them. So I mean, I've got to give credit to them. I mean, I don't watch Rotherham games, but there's obviously something going on there, and they've got 6 wins so far this season and 5 draws, and like three or 4 of them have come in 3 or 4 weeks. So, like I said earlier on, you've got to have momentum going in towards the back end of the season, and we're not there yet. We're only just ticked over the second half. But this is where results really count. This is when the table starts to take shape and you need to capitalise on these games. And they're doing it, so full credit to them. And I like to see them stay up because what I've seen the past few weeks, I'm impressed by them. So it'd be a shame for them to go down, especially when there's a chance QPR will go down. I'd love to see that. But I'd like to see Rotherham stay up, but it's just if they can string results together.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Rotherham put in a good account of themselves recently, and Birmingham and the likes of those clubs around there are definitely not safe. As a few weeks ago, it may have looked like they had no real immediate signs of danger. They're getting dragged into it, and like I said, it was quite a small fixture list in midweek. We're going to get onto the one other significant game we're going to mention, which was obviously the top of table clash between Swansea and Brentford. I mean, Regan, before I put my thoughts on the game, obviously from a Brentford perspective, thoughts on sort of what you think this shows for the season going forward, the game itself. Do you think it tells us a lot? Do you think it doesn't tell us too much? What are your thoughts on the game?
It's hard to actually say like my final thoughts on it because it says it tells me that these two will be up there the back end towards the end of this season, but it also doesn't tell me a lot to say like in which order they'll be because Brentford should have won that game. I've got to be honest, Brentford were the better team, but it's typical of Swansea yet again to just basically get a point out of these situations. So I don't really know what to take away from the game except for those teams. I mean, especially for Brentford, I think that the biggest plus for them is that they keep their unbeaten run alive because that's probably the toughest test that they've had in recent weeks, even though they haven't played in recent weeks. To keep that unbeaten run in the league alive. So if they can keep that momentum, then I mean they haven't like you said in our last episode. They're quite light in defence. They've got still quite a few injuries, etc. I don't know if they may use the loan market, etc. I mean, you know more of the in and outs of Brentford more than I do, obviously. So if they make any changes to their team, or I mean, it's not the team of last season, by any stretch of imagination. Yet they're still competing with the best in the league right now. So that's a scary team again. I haven't seen them a lot this season, especially for the past few weeks, and they're trying to get back into the swing of things after not having a league game in almost a month, pretty much. If with these few tight fixtures coming up, yeah, this team, Brentford could be the deal coming the back end of the season. They might even win the league because these fixture lists and the amount of confidence I can see from those players. They didn't look scared of Swansea whatsoever. That none of those players went out there and be like, okay, we're going to roll over. No chance. They attacked them start to finish, and to score against Swansea, who haven't conceded in the league in God knows how long. That's a credit in Brentford themselves. So. Yeah, I look forward to what Brentford can do the back end of the season.
Yeah, I think the things I'd take away from the game, Race, you're right. Brentford 100% dominated from start to finish. Not Swansea's only shot on target was the free kick that went in, and you would probably argue it wasn't even a shot. It was a cross that caused mayhem in the box and went straight into the goal. Apart from looking back on it, it was definitely a foul on David Raya. At the time, I was more frustrated actually with Brentford's You've dominated the game start to finish. You should have taken some chances. They finally go down to 10 men. You go 1-0 up. You finally put that deadlock. You think, just 15 minutes, hold it out. We dominated the ball anyway. They had no sniff even when with 11 men. So 10 men, you think, silly free kick given away. You allow Hiroham with his quality to whip one in and it goes straight in net. It was silly from Brentford, but the things that I think you take away from that game, I think you take away more positives with Brentford than you do negatives with Swansea. I think Swansea clearly had a bad day at the office, but they still come away with a draw. So fair play to them. I think the thing you come out with Brentford is we were worried. We thought the form Swansea are in, although Brentford are now 17 unbeaten in the Championship. We thought Swansea are going to turn over Brentford here. Me and you both thought that. And Brentford turned up, didn't give them a sniff, dominated from start to finish, and just played, and like you said, played without fear. Now, a depleted Brentford team that does have some injuries, I think that is quite the achievement in itself. I think it gives me confidence in Thomas Frank. I think he got it perfect. He didn't give their wing-backs, which we know Swansea's wing-backs are a very strong outlet of theirs, didn't give them a chance to get forward. I think Brentford played the game very well. I think what we take from it is that may seem harsh, but you have mentioned the transfer market where Brentford dip into low market. I think just that extra, just one player, maybe just one player, that extra bit of quality to help out. Maybe it wouldn't have changed the result of that game, maybe, but it may change the result of future games to come. And I think Brentford just one bit more quality could do that. Like we were bringing off the likes of the bench, and Tariq Foss, who got the goal. That guy puts in so much effort. He scored against Bournemouth, scores against Swansea, scores big goals. But in my opinion, he doesn't really have too much ability. I'd like to see someone else come in just to help out in those four positions. Maybe someone to help out in midfield. But yeah, what we take from that game is we don't know anything. We don't know anything more about who's going to finish in the top two. But I think we show that both these teams are definitely going to go to the end. I've seen Brentford fans disagree, that they think Swansea will drop off because we dominated the game so much. But I think you can't take that as the Swansea. You can't take that as what Swansea are going to be like this season. I think they are definitely going to be probably Brentford's biggest competition, maybe along with Bournemouth, the business they're doing at that top two. And I think we both agreed that Norwich are going to win the league. So I think what you take from that is more positives for Brentford. You do negatives for Swansea. I think Swansea just happy to come away with the point. But Brentford played very well, deserved to win the game, and didn't really step a foot wrong apart from the goal. So I was quite happy with the performance, although very frustrated afterwards. I was not a happy person for the 2 hours before I went to bed after that game. But anyway, we're going to move on, Regan, and predictions. Obviously, it was only 6 games to add on to the prediction scores of what happened last time. I don't think I did particularly well, did I? I don't think either of us did great, but I'm convinced I did even worse.
Well, you'll be happy to say that you didn't do worse than me. We just did as bad as each other, really. Yeah. I know at the start of the season we said, 50% would be all right for overall predictions. We got 2 out of that 6, which was Bristol City and Huddersfield, and Bristol City to beat Huddersfield and Coventry to beat Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, I said in their prediction it would be typical for Millwall and Watford to draw, but I still went for Watford. And what happened, probably the worst game of the season so far.
And then you see me finally back in Watford, and look what happens.
Exactly. And obviously, I went for Barnsley, you went for Cardiff. So the only logical thing was going to happen was that neither of us got that right, even though I thought I was going to have it. Because I saw half-time, went, Barnsley, you're doing well here. No chance. Borough Rotherham, obviously, we went for Middlesbrough, and Swansea Brentford, like you said, we both went to Swansea. So including the weekend games, which we accounted for, and that's 4-3 for that week, even though there was 10 games, etc. So overall, it's 116 to 131. Brilliant stuff.
Anyway, we'll move on swiftly, so we don't want to dwell on predictions that have been made. We can only look forward and change how that result is going to look. And Regan, the first one is another big game at the top of the table. Maybe not quite as big as Brentford Swansea, but still very, very significant in how the table's going to pan out. It's Reading and Bournemouth at the Medeski. Predictions, Regan. How do we see this tie going?
I think this I really don't know about this one. This may be the hardest one to call this week because these two teams that I can't usually call anyway. To put them up against each other is almost a near impossible task to call who's going to win. Because Reading and Medeski look all right, and just Bournemouth in the league at the moment ain't been great. They didn't play in the fixture week just. They obviously lost to Derby. They lost to Luton. I remember that one. So I think this could be a tough one to call. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go for the team that are better on paper. So I'm gonna say Bournemouth are gonna edge it. Maybe a 1-0.
I think the logic is to go with Bournemouth because although below them in the league and, like you said, had the tough times of late, I think Bournemouth, you're right, in terms of a big game, the squad definitely, they are the better side. But you know what, Regan? I don't know where I was going with that.
Yes. Yes.
I went to say Reading and then thought, are Bournemouth really going to drop? Because Bournemouth are at risk of dropping out of the top six. I think they're too good for that. Are they going to get their act together? You know what? I'll go draw. If you can't decide, go draw. If you can't decide, go draw. Reading very good at Medeski. Bournemouth, I just think, got to bounce back at some point. They're too good of a team to drop out the top six. So we'll go for a draw in that one. The next one is evolving another team at the top of the table is Norwich, and they're hosting Middlesbrough. You would have said probably a tough test for Norwich, but judging off Borough's 3-0 defeat to Rotherham, I mean, maybe they will score some goals.
I mean, I was going to predict Norwich either way. I just thought it was going to be a close one, but after that result against Rotherham, I can't get out my head the fact that they just conceded 3 goals to a pretty crap team. So I'm gonna have to go for Norwich, even though I don't know who's going to be starting up front. I think that's a bit of a worry for
Yeah.
Norwich, but I think regardless, that they are the best team in the league. So I'm going to have to back Norwich.
Somehow, with the quality players Norwich have in midfield, especially, even if they played without a striker, they'd somehow managed to manoeuvre it so it's an advantage to them against Borough. They're just by far and away the best team in this league at the moment. So can't look past Norwich, can you? I'm going to back them as well. Birmingham Coventry, the Battle of St Andrews 2.0. This time, the right way round. I mean, those are two teams that we've mentioned sort of close and not completely safe from the drop, but Coventry are definitely in better form than Birmingham. So there's not really home advantage in this one at all, if there is any way in games. Is it? You're too hard to call, isn't it, for you?
To be honest, it's not quite hard to call for me because every time that I only seem to back Swansea when they're at home, but the fact that they kind of are at home at St Andrews, I think I'm going to have to back the away team, even though they're playing at home, even though they're away. But I'm backing them because their form at home is better than their form away. So even though they're away at home, I'm going to back them away. So I'm going to back Coventry.
I'm going to back Coventry as well. I know this isn't exactly my way of making up results, but I agree with that flawed logic. Next one is Blackburn Luton at Ewood Park. Nearly forgot the name. Blackburn Luton Regan. Blackburn, they've got a chance here to push for those playoffs. Are they going to do it?
Over time, yeah, definitely, 100%. But come up against Luton is a very tough test, even though Luton's away form is nowhere near as good as their home form in the slightest. Even though Luton did beat Blackburn, and that was away. Yeah, that was away. No, wait. So Luton beat Bournemouth, and that was away from home. I'm pretty sure I said Blackburn there. But it's just a big gulf in class, really. It's just a big gap in class. So I'm gonna have to say Blackburn.
I'm joining you on Blackburn. I think Luton are going to. They've had a couple of tough games. They had Brentford. They put in a real battle for it. That came away with ultimately nothing. They put a battle up at Stamford Bridge. Came away with ultimately nothing. It's not against them. I just think playing against another tough team to play against in Blackburn. I think they're just going to struggle in this one. It's nothing particularly against Luton, but Blackburn are a decent side. I'm going to back Blackburn in this one. Really, the next one is Brentford Wickham. Now, usually I would go and say these are games of banana skins. It could potentially do. Brentford could maybe be fall short of too. They could have too much confidence that. But I think every Brentford fan, especially seeing the way they've played against Swansea, Wickham turning up to Brentford, it's got to be a Brentford win, is it not? It has to be.
Has to, yeah. I mean, Wickham haven't played in the Championship since like New Year's or around there when they lost to Middlesbrough. And even though they scored against Spurs, congratulations, well done, have a medal. Doesn't really matter. I think Wickham. I mean, I said this when in the reverse fixture, I said that Brentford were going to trounce them, but I firmly believe that this time. So I'm gonna have to say Brentford. And if you don't, you're stupid.
Yep, that's it. Well, Brentford, you are stupid if you think anything else. There, Regan has told you. Cardiff Millwall, Big Mix first home game in charge.
Yeah, it's the Neil Harris. Oh no,
Not quite the Millhouse derby anymore.
Harris stuff. I mean, it kind of is. He kind of managed both of them. Christ Almighty.
It's hard to think of what a Big Mix team is like yet, isn't it? So it's hard to give a.
Yeah, I mean, to get a draw against Barnsley, I don't think many teams score twice against Barnsley at Oakwell this season. So I got to give credit for that. But then again, you did concede twice to Barnsley at Oakwell. But it's his first home game, and I think, like you said last week, he's a very win now type of manager, win immediately manager. And if you want to win, you probably come up against Millwall because they'll probably sit back, but they'll leak a few goals. So I'm going to have to say Cardiff on this one.
I'm going to join you on Cardiff. Just Millwall, not particularly inspiring.
Good.
Good, yeah. Just not particularly good. And I mean, I guess you saw something at Barnsley. I mean, it wasn't much, but I mean, it was. You could call it a reaction. His team came from 2-0 down, so I mean, a Big Mix doing something there, you'd think. So I'll back Cardiff as well. Derby, Bristol City, Regan. Bristol City won in midweek in ridiculous fashion. Huddersfield absolutely dominating dominating the game. Bristol City winning. It's what Bristol City do at times. They do seem to defy the odds. Will they beat Derby?
Oh, this is a tough one because I know Bristol City like to let teams control games, but Derby like to let teams control games and basically do the same thing. So it's basically going to be which team wants to attack and which team wants to attack the other on the break. I definitely can't see a draw here because I don't think either team is capable of drawing against each other. I think that's almost frowned upon because one of them will find a way to win. It's just a matter of which one. I really can't call this one. I am going to say Bristol City.
Get in, because I'm going to say Derby. I wanted something different there. Just think Derby are actually quite a good team in a moment, although the table doesn't suggest it. I think they are decent. I'll rate them under Wayne Rooney. And I mean, at Bristol City, fair play to them, got the win, but after being dominated like that at home to Huddersfield, I'm not fully confident in them at the moment. We'll go Derby there. Huddersfield Stoke. You do seem to like to talk about Huddersfield's home form, but it's not been quite as good of late. Stoke just can't win games, can they?
I don't think either of these teams are just good generally. This, I think, for the first time in a while, I may have to bring out the insane logic.
Oh,
These two teams are so just awful at the moment that I just don't think they can beat each other. And plus, Stoke are without a certain somebody. So I am going to say...
I don't think you've predicted them to win since he got injured.
No, I generally haven't. And to be fair, I've got it right most of the time. So I don't think they basically have won since he got injured. So yeah, these two teams are just so bad. I can't see either team winning, even though I probably can see Huddersfield winning one Stoke. But I'm going to say draw.
I can't disagree. The insane logic isn't so insane, is it? It's not so insane. It's actually quite
Common sense.
quite rational. I'm going to back you on a draw as well, Regan, on that one. Forest Barnsley.
I'm not sure.
It's not the most thrilling fixture list of this week, is it?
I mean, it can be because these two teams can score quite a few goals, but I'd imagine when these two teams come up against each other, it is not. I mean, Nottingham Forest get absolutely battered by Swansea in the FA Cup. I'm like, what the hell is going on there? Because they were doing well in the league before, and they got quite a few good results together. I was like, okay, maybe they can string a few. Maybe they can climb up the table, but nah. Jesus. I think I am going to say not in the Forest just because I don't really back Barnsley away from Oakwell. So I'm going to be safe and say not in the Forest.
I find this one very tough because I sort of get your opinion of not backing Barnes away from Oakwell. Forest have been better of recent, but that doesn't mean they've been good.
Not at all.
I mean, in terms of teams-wise, I'd like to back Barnsley, but I've also got this feeling Forest I may be wrong on this, but Forest definitely seem better at the City ground when they do away. I may be completely wrong on that. I'll go Forest. I'll go Nottingham Forest on this one. Is that what you went with? Sorry, I didn't. Yeah, Forest. Rotherham Swansea. Now, a game that maybe before Wednesday night you would have said easy. Swansea are winning that one. Is it still the same case, Regan?
No, not at all. No. Because I mean, no. I mean, I'm not going to explain it. The answer is no. Rotherham has scored 6 goals in their last 2 games, but they come up against a team that is known for not conceding 1 goal in 6 games. So it's going to be a bit of a shock to Rotherham to realise that out of all their attacking, they're just going to get closed down constantly. So I think because of that, it'll be a bit of a shock to Rotherham, and just because Swansea are Swansea, I think they'll find it relatively comfortable. So I'm going to say Swansea.
You know what? I'm going to go controversial. Rotherham are going to throw a spanner in the mix here, and it's going to be a draw. Swansea are just going to. But Swansea didn't look on the pace at all, and I know we're playing against a good Brentford side, but I think we may see his little spell of not Swansea being particularly bad, but maybe running out of ideas for a few weeks. It did look like they literally offered nothing against Brentford. It wasn't the fact of maybe they were unlucky in front of it. They offered nothing. Maybe Rotherham can play on that with the momentum they've got. I'm going to go draw. I think Rotherham can nick a point here. I think Rotherham can do it. Sheffield Wednesday Preston is our penultimate game, Regan.
I've got to say, this is probably one of the hardest weeks in recent weeks that we've had to call, because these two teams, like Sheffield Wednesday's home form is all right, but Preston's away form is terrible. But at the end of the day, Preston are a better team than Sheffield Wednesday.
You all say this Preston's away form's terrible. I need to look into this because the only results that come to mind of me are them beating us 4-2 and scoring 4 at Bournemouth as well. But you probably are right.
I mean, it's gonna be hard to call, but I just think Sheffield Wednesday's defence against Preston's attacking front line, that's not a very good matchup for me, and I think Preston their goal scoring capability is too good, so I'm going to have to say Preston.
Yeah, I'm going to go Preston as well. They're going to score 4 away from home. You heard it here first. Finally, Regan, Monday night football, bit of a London derby here. I mean, depends where you count Watford. Watford against QPR. Now, you're not particularly a fan of it. This is the Monday night football. You wouldn't get Carragher and Neville on this one, would you?
I mean, I'm not a fan of the fact this is actually a football game, to be quite honest. I mean, I'm not going to surprise anyone with what I'm saying. That I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. That Watford are going to win.
Watford are going to win indeed. I completely agree with you there, Regan. We did agree on quite a bit in this week's round predictions. That is this week's predictions over, and that is this episode of Champ Talk done with. We will be back again in the week. We've got more midweek fixtures, as I mentioned at the beginning. But Regan,
can I say something quickly first?
You may. Go on.
You may not know this, but to all the viewers, today is actually the 2nd anniversary of From the Terrace podcast.
Oh, there you go.
We've been doing this for 2 years already. So thank Thank you for everyone tuning in. And if you're new, just subscribe. It's free. What are you doing?
I mean, Regan, as I was just about to mention, if you have enjoyed the video,
Hey.
go on for a special From the Terrace podcast 2-year anniversary. Why not like the video, subscribe to the From the Terrace podcast YouTube channel, leave us a rating on iTunes, follow us on Spotify, do the whole shebang, and we'll see you in the next Champ Talk.